Mr. President, please be seated. The court is now back in session. We would like to now hand over to counsel for Mr. Ieng Seri to proceed with their questions.
Thank you, Mr. President. And for the record, Mr. Angodom is with the client right now, so that's why he's not here in court. Okay, sir. Now let's talk a little bit about right before the fall of Phnom Penh. And we've already heard from you where you've indicated that on or about the 19th of April, 1975, you accompanied Son Sen to Phnom Penh. And what I would like you to do is now to go back a few weeks before that, and could you please tell us where you were at that time?
Response. First, I was at B5 office, then at this Dok Tao office.
All right. And who were you with?
Response. At B5, I was with Pol Pot, and I still remained with him in Dok Tao location.
All right. Now, So Hong appeared here, and in his testimony, and I'm referring to E1/69.1 at Khmer 00803722-23, English 00804965, and French 00804859. That's where I'll begin, Your Honors, and it'll go for the next page or two. He's told us that at the time prior to the fall of Phnom Penh, he was in the West Zone, Kopong Spur, I believe, and he was there with his uncle Pol Pot, where he was asked to guard an ammunition dump, apparently. And at one point, which is on the following page, I asked him about Pong, and he indicated Pong was not in that office with me at the time. Pong was on the east of the Tonle Sap, while I was on the west of the Tonle Sap. And then if we go to the next page, he was asked about you, where you were, and you indicated, and this is on Khmer 00803724, English it's 00804967, and French 00804861. As I recall, Chiem was at the east of the river. He was with Pong because the office was under the supervision of Pong. And this is just for clarification purposes. Is that right? Were you with Pong at the time on the other side of the Tonle Sap and not necessarily with Pol Pot right before the fall of Phnom Penh, if you recall?
Response. I think what he said was his statement But in my statement, I already stated that I was at B5 and then at Doctor office.
All right. So I take it what he's stating, according to your memory, is not accurate. When he says that you were with Pong on the one side of the Tonle Sap in Kampong Speu with him and Pol Pot on the other. This is right prior to the fall of Phnom Penh.
មិនបាច់ឆ្លើយតប
The President, you witness do not need to respond to the question since it is not in your capacity to assess the statement made by another witness.
Excuse me, Mr. President. I thought this was the whole purpose of this exercise. We have testimony of one witness who says that he was in a particular location. I'm trying now to see whether this gentleman was at that location that So Hong, the
President, witness, you do not need to respond. Witness cannot provide you speculative response.
Witness, without having to speculate, could you please tell us whether there was an office in Kampong Speu on one side of the Tonle Sap with Pol Pot being on the other side of the Tonle Sap, if you recall? Please do not, under any circumstances, speculate.
The President, Counsel, could you try to rephrase your question? There is none of his response that said he was at the east of the river. He talked about him present at Stocktown and at B1, B5 rather. That was his response, but he did not say that he was on the east side of the river.
Mr. President, I'm not suggesting that he was on the east side. I would like to know, if he knows, whether there was such a place as described as So Hong, where Pol Pot would have been on one side with Pong on the other, in the area which is described by So Hong. If he knows, fine, it's a physical location. If he doesn't know, that's fine as well.
Response. I only knew that I was at B5, but I couldn't say about the other people's statements.
All right, immediately before the fall of Phnom Penh, that is around April 14th, April 15th, where are you located physically?
Response. I was at the Stocktown's office. So Hong was also there together with me.
All right. And was Son Sen there as well?
Response. Son Sen was a little bit further. He was at the Bat Kon Pagoda.
All right. Now, you've told us yesterday that it was you who accompanied So Sen on 19 April 1975 to come into Phnom Penh. Can you please tell us who it was that gave you the order to accompany Son Sen.
After the liberation of Phnom Penh, Son Sen was closely staying near Pol Pot.
And my question is, which of the two, or maybe there was someone else, that gave you the order to accompany Son Sen? Was it Pol Pot? Was it Son Sen himself that ordered you? Or did somebody else order you to accompany Son Sen into Phnom Penh?
Response: Pol Pot assigned me to accompany him. At that time, he said, "Jim, you accompany Comrade Kiel to Phnom Penh."
All right. And what about Pong? Where was Pong at the time, if you recall?
At that time, Pong was at the rear, at Canal Bay, at Batie, and at other locations. He was he had been at various locations during 1974.
All right. So from that answer of yours, can you please tell us, when Pong wasn't around, who was it that was giving you day-to-day orders while you were with Pol Pot? You've told us that Pol Pot assigned you specifically to go with Son Sen. So can you please tell us, since Pong wasn't around, were you under the direct supervision of Pol Pot?
Response: I was at B5, then at Dok Tao. So Hong was also there. So Hong was there with me.
Maybe my question wasn't clear. When Pong is not around to give you orders and instructions, and you're with Pol Pot, as you've just indicated, right after the fall of Phnom Penh, you are with him. Who is giving you orders on what to do on a day-to-day basis?
Response: at the rear, it was Pong. But here we talk about the location near Kampong Chnang or Kampong Spư, and it was So Hong. At that time, there were only a few of us. And sometimes when he was engaged in other tasks, then Pol Pot would give me instruction. Sometimes he went to office 305 or the Southwest office. He had his spearhead. So sometimes he was present there, sometimes he went to other locations.
All right, and just so we have a clear record, as I understand your answer, when Pong isn't around, it is So Hong who's giving you instructions, or Pol Pot. Did I get the essence of your answer correctly?
Response: in reality, that's how it worked.
Thank you very much on that. Now, when you went into Phnom Penh with Son Sen on April 1975, since you were accompanying him, can we assume that he, at that point in time, was your direct superior?
Response. Regarding the B5 office and Dok Tao, I would ferry the letters between these two offices to the battlefield. At the time he was at the Bat Gold Pagoda, the distance was not that far.
Thank you. I think something may be getting lost in translation, and it could be my questions are inartfully put. When you went to Phnom Penh with Son Sen on 19 April 1975, was he your superior at the time?
Response. He was also my superior because I delivered between him and Pol Pot. I delivered the letters between him and Pol Pot. So let's say all those leaders were my superiors.
All right. So when you went into Phnom Penh in 19 April 75, can you please tell us for how long you were with Son Sen? For how long was he giving you orders at that time?
Response. At that time we went in the morning and we returned in the evening. He went to his location and I went to my place, that is at Pol Pot's place, because he did not come to Pol Pot's place to rest. He went to his place at Bat Gold Pagoda to rest.
Thank you for that clarification. And I believe from listening to your testimony, it was the following day that everyone went in, and that would have included Pol Pot. Is that your recollection?
Response. I did not get a question. Could you provide again?
All right. Well, we now know that on the 19th of April, you went to Phnom Penh and came back the same day. As I understand your testimony, on the 20th, that would have been the following day, everyone went into Phnom Penh, including Pol Pot. Is that your recollection, or am I misstating the evidence?
Response. Yes, that is correct. Everyone went to Phnom Penh on the 20th.
And since you had gone back on the 19th to where Pol Pot's office was and where he was residing, on the 20th, the following day, when Pol Pot went into Phnom Penh, did you go along with him? And if so, were you guarding him at the time?
Response. When we all left together and we gathered up at the railway station.
All right. Well, did you accompany Pol Pot on the 20th? And if so, were you part of the security detail, the security apparatus for Pol Pot? Or were you simply told to meet at the railway station? Which of the two? Or another possibility?
Response. On that day, Son Sen came, Pol Pot came. I was driving a cheap car, and they was traveling in a Range Rover vehicle. Son Sen and him were in the same vehicle. But by the time we were near Phnom Penh, he then changed the transport and he was on the tank.
And who gave you the orders specifically on that day to go to Phnom Penh and meet up at the railway station?
Response. It was So Hong, and So Hong also went along with Pol Pot. As I said, I was driving the vehicle, and there was a Land Rover vehicle when we entering Phnom Penh.
All right. And when you got to Phnom Penh, who was your superior? Who was giving you instructions on that day and the following days, if you recall?
Response. When we arrived in Phnom Penh, and on the subsequent days, it was So Hong.
And so if So Hong had testified that he had remained behind to guard the ammunition depot, that would be inconsistent with your memory of him being along with you in Phnom Penh on the 20th of April, 1975.
Response. As I recall, So Hong did not have the duty to guard the ammunition store because he and I were close to Pol Pot. But at that time he was traveling in the same vehicle with Pol Pot, but I was driving a cheaper vehicle at the time. However, the statement he made is his, but I tell you simply from my recollection.
Thank you. And that's what we're asking for, your recollection. Now, you have touched upon your activities prior to being assigned by Pol Pot to go to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and you've indicated that you were providing security guarding at various locations in Phnom Penh. That is immediately after the fall of Phnom Penh. Did I have it right?
Response. I did state that initially when we arrived, we met up at the railway station, and after that we went to the commerce Ministry, that is the former Commerce Ministry. And Pong groups also went to that location. We all met up there because we only met up for a short period of time at the railway station.
All right. And that was going to be my next question. When did Pong come? And if you recall, coming under his subordination at any point in time prior to you going to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs?
Response. When we all met up, he was also one of the leaders. And So Hong was also one of the leaders, and that I worked with him. So we met up and we were together.
And just so that we're clear, is Pong giving you instructions as far as providing security and guarding during this period of time?
Response. When we all met up, the same thing was as we were in the jungle. He managed all the tasks. However, he went back and forth to various other locations, as I stated in my previous statement. After that, we went to the Precav Palace and other locations, so he managed those locations. And Bong Hong also went to those various locations, and I also went along as well.
All right. And I guess what I'm trying to get a clear grasp of is your activities during those days. What exactly are you doing during those days before you go to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and under whose supervision are you? Who's directly supervising you at the time?
Response. As I said, I was there, Bong Pong was there, and so was So Hong. And the duty of receiving the guest and preparing the guest house started from there at the time. And my task was to managing the force to prepare those guest houses, the kitchen hall, and the receptionist. So I was actually acting on behalf of Pong or So Hong at the time.
Okay, thank you very much. And that's what I was trying to clarify. Now, you told us yesterday, having looked at the DC CAM interview, that it was Pol Pot that assigned you to the MFA. I guess my next question now is, if you could describe to us the sort of qualifications that you had to occupy the position that you were given.
Response. My qualification at the time was in the management and preparation of the guest houses, of the kitchen hall, and of the receipt of guests. I was able to carry out those duties in order to ensure that the houses were cleaned, the rooms were cleaned, and the bathrooms were cleaned. And the same thing applied to the kitchen hall. And we need to have all those cutleries cleaned. So that was a part of the management that I did. And of course, I worked together with other people and with the leadership. And that was the task that I carried out.
All right. Now, I just want to make sure that I'm clear. Is your testimony that while you were head of the administration at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for nearly 4 years, your job was exactly what you told us, making sure that the toilets were clean, that the kitchen had knives and forks? Is that our understanding of what your tasks were in that position that you were holding?
Response. When you talk about the administration, management, that was one thing, but what I did was the actual things or tasks that I carried out. That is in the preparation of the guest houses and in the receipts of the guests. Or you could simply say they were part of the administration tasks that I carried out. Also, my task was also to take those visitors or guests to the areas as assigned by the leadership or to visit other locations.
And that is the extent of your tasks at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Is that what you're telling us today, or am I missing something?
Response. I could not describe all the details of a day-to-day chores for you because there were a lot of details in what I did during those 4 years. Because I was the head of the office.
That's what I'm trying to get at. You told us that at one point you were managing up to 1,000 people. You also indicated that part of your duties was psychological control as well as political. And my question earlier was, what qualifications did you bring to the job to be assigned by Pol Pot to hold that position and carry out those functions? Can you please describe concretely what sort of skills you had, what sort of knowledge, what sort of experience you had to carry out those tasks?
Response. First, that is, be loyal to the party, to the revolution, and to the people, and to have the clear view on that. And number two, when we are that clear, then it would be the responsibility that we have to undertake so that the result would be effective and satisfactory.
All right. And I take it that exhausts the list of your qualifications for holding that position that you were given to carry out by Pol Pot.
Response. From my practical observation, it was based on what I just described.
All right. And one other question, because yesterday you indicated, and it might have been lost in translation or mistranslated, that on your trip to China, you were asked to sort of observe and learn from the Chinese their experience on tourism. That's what I heard. Could you please elaborate on that? If I have it wrong, please clarify it. But as I understand it, you talked about tourism, and this would have been as far as taking care of foreign guests. Could you please tell us what exactly you meant by that?
Response. I already described this point yesterday. My duty to accompany people during that trip was to see how the tourism or the reception was done in that country. What types of cutlery they use, for example, if you want to know that details, the knives and forks in the receipt of the guest, and what were the things or the fixture or furnitures they use in the guest rooms, and the types of cloth they used or the carpet they used. So these were the details of what I had to learn during that visit to China. Also, I went to the native town of Mao Zedong, and to visit other locations, including Guilin. That mainly we went to various tourist resorts and locations. And as for Cambodia, we do have Angkor Wat. So we went to see the process they use in their reception of the guest. And then we could learn from that and try to improve what we did back home. So I went and contacted those tourist locations in order to learn and to draw experience from them.
All right, and just one final point, and by the way, thank you very much for that answer. And I just want to make sure I understand it. You're telling us that you went there to make a personal observation, or this was something organized by the Chinese to show you how they do it? In other words, one, you were trying to experience it yourself firsthand and then draw lessons from that, versus the Chinese showing you how they welcome their guests and what they do with them.
Response. Chinese did not know that we would be there to draw off lessons. I was there to observe how visitors were received. For example, how tables were laid and how visitors were treated. And we went to Mao Zedong's hometown and Guilin, and I had my personal observation of how things were managed. And it was not really a preparation made in advance before or for our visit anyway.
Thank you very much for that clarification. I think that the point is clear now. Now, I want to go back to a topic that we touched upon yesterday, and I want to give you one more opportunity first to tell us whether you had anything to do with security while you were at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs?
The President, witness, could you please hold down? International Co-Prosecutor, you may now proceed.
Yes, Mr. President. As counsel acknowledges in his question itself, this is a repetitive question that was already asked yesterday. We would object on that basis.
Mr. President, I'm about to confront the gentleman with all sorts of references from So Hong, where he claims the gentleman was working under him in security matters. The prosecution makes reference to it. It's in prosecution documents. It's in Philip Short's book. There are also two witnesses. One one will appear, and I can give the names, not the names, but the code numbers. And the gentleman is under oath. He is subject to perjury. I want to give him an opportunity to answer the question before I pose the following questions. That's why I want to be fair to the gentleman, because earlier today he told us that he was tired yesterday. Perhaps he misspoke or simply forgot that he was part of the security apparatus at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
The President, the objection and ground for the objections are sustained. The question was repetitive. Witness is now instructed not to respond to it.
Thank you, Mr. President. If we could go to, I would now like to direct your attention to portions of the testimony by So Hong. You've already indicated today that prior to going to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, he was at times your superior, and I believe you told us that while at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, he was also your superior. So, unless there are any objections, I would like to go to the transcript. There being none, if we could go to E1/69.1, and I'm referring to Khmer 00803690, English 00804924, and French 00804812-13. And this is from the transcript on the 26th of April 2012. It's on, in the English version, it's on page 16. Page 14. And it would appear that this is a question being posed by the president of the trial chamber. Did you know if Chiam, who was your deputy, ever took people from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to Security Office S21? Answer: I knew that Chiam took people out of the ministry, rather the office S21, but I did not know where those people were taken to. Further down, the answer: those people were taken out of B1 office, but I did not know where they were taken to. And then further down, there were those people who were sent by Pong. Now, you've told us earlier, when questioned by the prosecution, you have indicated that that you took people out of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. My question is the answer provided by So Hong accurate to your recollection?
The President, witness, could you please hold on? International co-prosecutors, you may now proceed.
Mr. President, for the question, to be fair, I think counsel should be very clear which specific facts he's asking him to confirm. He read from a number of passages, and perhaps he should give the witness a copy of that, or he should direct them to the specific facts he's asking him to confirm.
Fair enough. Let me start off with, here So Hong is saying that Pong's people would come and direct you to take people out of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Did you do that?
Response. I already stated yesterday that people would be taken from Office 870 and Pang would be the one who assigned people to take the people to, but I do not know where they would have been taken to. It is true that people would be taken from B1, but I just don't know where they would end up being sent to.
Thank you. But here So Hong says that I knew that Chiam took people out of the ministry, rather the office S21, but I did not know where those people were taken to. So did you yourself take those people, and was it under the direction of Pong or his people to take those people out of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs?
Response. My main superior was Ing Sari, then So Hong. So these people were the immediate superiors of mine. But when it came to transportation of people, it was Office 870 who was in charge, and I don't know where they would be taken to. Bong Sao Hong said about people being taken to S21, and I have no idea because I don't know S21, and I agree that people would be taken from the location I confirmed, but to where they would be taken to, I don't know. The Office 870 had a close relation with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So that's why people were sent from B1 and also from Office 870.
All right. Now, you mentioned the people from 870 would come. Were you in a position to refuse those people? Or did you ever turn away any requests from Office 870 for people to be taken out of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs?
Response. I had no authority to contest such orders. I had to follow the orders as a subordinate.
Okay. That means the orders of Pong?
Response, yes.
Is that because you were his subordinate?
Response, yes.
Now, if we could look at E1/66.1. This is a transcript from the 23 April 2012. I'm referring to Khmer ERN number 00802149, English 00803660, French 00803552 to 53. And this is a question. It's on page 88 of the transcript, in English that is. And it's a question from the international co-prosecutor asking Sohong the following question. What about security? In English, it's line 13. Answer. I was also part of the security. I was part of it. Question. Mr. Chiem, your deputy, had what particular responsibilities? Answer. The main responsibilities of Chiem included the security, plantations and cleaning houses for the guests. Sir, here you have your superior, Sohong, saying that you are responsible, among other things, for security. Do you still maintain that you had nothing to do with security while you were at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs?
Response, I wish to reiterate that in the ministry, first person was Ieng Sari, second in command, Bong Sao Hong. Third, I was in the position. So with regard to security, the three of us would be in charge. He who was on the top, at the top level, would have overall order, and Hong would be in charge of political affairs, and I was in charge of administration, who at the same time dealt with the security matters. And this was a kind of systematic task and interrelated, because security was always involved. Whenever there were politics, the economy, and the military, then security is part and parcel of this.
Thank you. Now, I just want to clarify one point, because yesterday I repeatedly asked you if you had anything to do with security. Anything, at any time, while you were at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And under oath, yesterday, you said no. You were vehement about it. Today, you seem to be changing your tune. You're singing a different song. So, were you involved in security matters?
The President, Council, you are not supposed to make a statement to make the witness lose his confidence. You could do so in your closing statement. Witness is instructed not to respond to that question, and counsel is advised to rephrase the question and try to refrain from putting questions that is trying to intimidate or make witness lose confidence in his testimony. If or whether the statement of the witness is or lacks probative value or not, you can do so by stating in your closing statement.
Forgive me, Mr. President, but perhaps the language was colorful. I was borrowing what you've indicated to one of the lawyers, that they've been singing the same song. Perhaps I took some liberties in using that as part of the question. But I think my job as an advocate here is not to provide some veneer, some facade, but to actually ask probing questions. And in this instance, I'm confronting the man. Yesterday he said he was not part of security, and today he's slightly changing his story because now he's being confronted with evidence. That's what lawyers do. That's what I think is done at all international tribunals, and that's exactly what I intend to do. So I would like to go on with my question and ask the gentleman, is he not giving a different answer today than he gave yesterday?
Response. Yesterday, I indicated that I was having problem with my memory loss because I was bombarded with questions, and I could not have a clear mind when addressing to some of the questions. And indeed, you are the one who is on your feet posing question to me. You may judge whether my testimony suits your wish or not, but that's what I could do my best. Yesterday I was not clear in my mind, but today I am better. And I still now can respond to all questions put to me in orders of your line of questioning.
Staying with E1/69.1, this is 2 pages further down, and the Khmer is 00803692. The English 00804926. And the French, it's 00804814. And again, if I look at the index, it would appear that it's still the presiding judge asking the question to which you give an answer, to which Mr. Sohong gives an answer, which is, I knew that Chiam took these people away. I did ask Chiam about it, that is, where those people were taken to. And I said, could it be me next time? I was kidding at the time, and he said to me that he took those people out of the office, and then other people came to take them from him, so he did not know about that. And my question, because we will get to it later on, is, do you recall an instance when Sohong, your superior, is asking you, who he claims was in charge of security, or part of the security apparatus, where he's asking you, could he be next? Do you recall that exchange?
Response. No, I don't.
All right. Now, yesterday I read you a passage, and I can go back to it again, where Sohong indicated that when it came to security matters, that you were still under Pong. And I believe you've indicated to us today, yes.
The President, International Court Prosecutor, you may now proceed.
Mr. President, we'd object. That's a complete misstatement of the witness's testimony. The witness has consistently said when he was asked that he reported to Sohong and Ing Sari. Counsel is now mischaracterizing a response that was to a very specific, narrow question about when people showed up from Office 870 to take away people. Could he refuse that order? And he's trying to change that into Pong was his superior for all matters. So he's completely misstating the witness's testimony. He's been asked a number of occasions already, and he's been consistent about who his superiors were.
Let me go on to some passages, Your Honor. Perhaps it'll become abundantly clear what I'm talking about. If we could go on to E1/69.1, this is Khmer 00803744, English 00804992, French 00804889. And in the English version, I will be starting on line 21, and I'll go over for a few pages off and on, and I'll indicate when I change pages. It starts with a question. And if I were to ask you about Chiam, P. Pun, do you know how it is that somehow he ended up in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs as well? Answer, Chiam worked in one of the sections under my supervision, and he was in charge of peasantry, and he was supervising security matters and cultivation matter. Now we're on to the next page. Question. Let me go back and ask you the question again. You told us earlier that Pong was the one that appointed Chiam at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Do I have it right? Yes, you are right. Question. And you just told us that he worked in security, on security matters. Is that right? The mic wasn't activated. Question. He was your subordinate. You were his superior. Answer. Yes. Within the framework of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, that was the case. And you were also in charge of security matters. Answer. Yes, I was. This is Sohong saying this. Now, if we go on to the following page, which would be in Khmer 00803745, English 00804994, and French 4890 to 91. I'm going on. Prior to going to MFA, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, you and Chiam were involved in security matters under the direct supervision of Pong. Is that right? Answer, that is right. Then we go on to the following page. I ask on line 21 a question to which he answers, I do not know who the direct superior of Pong was, but I knew but what I knew was that Pong was the chairman of Office 870. Let me stop here for a second because we're running out of time. To your understanding, was Pong at this period of time the chairman of Office 870?
Response. Yes, he was.
All right. Now, if we go to page Khmer 00803747 to 48, English 00804997, in French 00804893 to 94. There's some other questions that I pose, where I do ask him, all right, what would happen if you had resisted Pong when he came to take some people away? And the answer is, I did not have anything to object to him. When I met him, I asked why he needed to take them away. Then he told me that the people would be transferred to this office or that office, and sometimes that the people would be sent to another location. So then I would let those people, I would have no further objections. Let me stop here, sir, and ask you this question. Was that the answer that you were given? Did you ever pose that question yourself? Or did you take it at faith value that when Pong's people came from 870, that you had to turn them over?
The President, witness, please hold on. International Co-Prosecutor, you may now proceed.
Mr. President, the problem I have with this question is that he's reading long passages and then asking a vague question like, did you ask this question yourself? He's also admitted a critical part of So Hong's testimony, which is that he was instructed by Ing Suri to cooperate with Pong when he showed up. But I'd simply ask that it's fine if he wants to read these long excerpts, but he should ask a question that's clear and understandable to the witness, and I don't think this question was.
Well, Mr. President, we haven't heard any objections to the witness, although now the witness has heard what the prosecutor has said, which I find troubling. But the witness was thinking about it and was reading the passage and was about to answer. And I see it's 12 o'clock, just to point the obvious.
The President, the objection and ground for the objection are sustained. Witness is instructed not to respond to that question.
Should I continue?
The President, since it is now appropriate time for lunch adjournment, the Chamber will adjourn. The next session will be resumed by 1:30 p.m. Court officer is now instructed to assist Mr. Witness and his jury counsel during the lunch break and have them return to the courtroom by 1:30 p.m. Counsel for Mr. Nunchia, you may now proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, everyone. I'm afraid I'm on my feet to sing a very familiar song. I'm informed our client is suffering from a backache, a headache, and a general lack of concentration. He would like to, therefore, spend the afternoon session in his holding cell. We've prepared the waiver.
The President. The Chamber notes your request and therefore grants it. Mr. Nunchia is allowed to observe the proceedings from his holding cell downstairs for the remainder of the day. Mr. Nunchia has expressly waived his right to be present in the courtroom through his counsel. The Chamber would like counsel for Mr. Ieng Sari to submit the waiver with thumbprint or signed by Mr. Nunchia immediately to the Chamber and that security personnel are instructed to bring him to his holding cell where he can observe the proceedings from there. Bring Mr. Kyu Sompon as well to his holding cell and return him to the courtroom in the afternoon when the next session resumes.